I'm here continuing on Arnold, the Education of a Bodybuilder. My detailed notes or summarized notes of the book, looking at chapters 3 and 4 now. With chapters 3, basically once he wins the Mr. Europe Junior, Arnold talks about a guy called Schneck who offers him a job in his gymnasium in Munich, as well as a room in his home. But as soon as Arnold finds out he's a homosexual, he leaves and searches for a room of his own. He does take the job at the gym and struggles in Munich. He's managing the gym, and if you got to understand, he's training people. There's actually some photos of him, a very young Arnold, training some young blokes in this gym, if you look on the internet hard enough. So he was a physical instructor, and so having to deal with his work the whole day meant that he couldn't train as he used to for 3-4 hours whatever a day. So he developed a split routine, training twice a day for 2 to 3 hours each time. He gains 5 pounds on this split routine. He goes from 225 to 230, and he wins the Mr. Europe easily, with the judges offering him a plane ticket to compete in the Mr. Universe contest in London. Now the problem is that the person that offered him this, one of the judges, was actually Schneck, from what I remember. And actually, look, Schneck actually was not his real name. His real name was actually Rolf Putziger. You can look him up. Arnold obviously tries to cover up his name, but his actual name is not Schneck, it's Rolf Putziger. He was a famous homosexual in Germany, and he started the magazine called Kraft Sport Review, where Arnold actually is showcased heavily by Rolf Putziger and Albert Busek. These guys basically were like the Joe Wader for Arnold, equivalent in Germany. They kicked off his career by showing him constantly on covers, which I will cover soon. But basically, from what I understand, Schneck or Putziger, that's what happened, yeah. So because he entered the best built man competition in Europe and won it, it was not sponsored by the same federation as the Mr. Europe, and basically they take his ticket away from him to the Mr. Universe contest in London. So he actually goes to Reinhard Smolana, who owned another gym, his actual competitive, his major competition. And Reinhard realizes Arnold's potential and gathers enough money for him, and they get a ticket to the Mr. Universe for him. So he reaches London and is beaten by the American Chet Yorton, who's promoted by Wader. And although he is beaten by Chet Yorton, he places second and catches the attention of the American magazines and British muscle magazines as well. And they are basically baffled at this young Austrian with 20-inch arms. Interestingly, Arnold explains that upon seeing Chet Yorton, he actually admits defeat and realizes the importance of having a chiseled and polished, refined look. He realizes that he has weaknesses and lacks such things as abdominals. You can clearly see these are very smooth. Thighs and calves, and a proper tan. I mean, here he's really white. He realizes that having a huge upper body is not enough to beat the best in the world. And that's basically chapter 3. Chapter 4. He returns to Munich after the universe contest, and Arnold is finally offered to own the gym he was running for Putziger. Basically, he sells it to Arnold, but Arnold doesn't really have much money, so he develops business skills and uses his publicity from having placed second in the Mr. Universe to basically get attention from the public, and memberships start flying in. They go from 70 to 200, as he states right there. So he does well for himself. Arnold enters another competition in Essen after that and wins it hands down, and begins receiving more coverage in the bodybuilding press in Germany through magazines such as Der Muskelbilder, which I have a few copies of, and I'm going to go through some of these competitions that he entered when he was so young. I'm lucky enough to have these magazines, as well as I said, front covers on Craft Sport Review. And he's also invited to do exhibitions in England by Wag Bennett, and so he actually gets exposure there, and he's also on some first covers in England. Wag Bennett in England actually teaches him how to pose and becomes Arnold's mentor in a way, and he teaches him to pose to the music from a movie called Exodus. There it is there. I know this book like the back of my palm because I've read it so many times already. But yeah, Arnold famously uses this music throughout his career. He's well known for posing to Exodus. Then he returns to Munich and meets Franco Colombo, a powerful powerlifter who teaches Arnold basically to powerlift, while Arnold teaches Franco bodybuilding, and together they formed their famous duo. Arnold grows from 230 to 250 pounds using the combination now of powerlifting and bodybuilding. So his mass goes even higher. Arnold meets Reg Park in 1967 in January and joins him on his exhibition tour, working out with him and having his idol as a training partner. There he is, Arnold, sheepishly smiling at Reg Park as he meets him for the very first time. And so basically he's a mentor for Arnold, and Arnold learned much from Reg Park. He continued to train almost totally according to Reg Park's principles, and he gets in trouble with the law later on when he comes back to Germany, as he tries to prove that he's a big tough guy, and he has some close brushes with the police, actually trying to prove his macho-ness. Anyway, finally I'll move on to chapter 5, before stopping this video. In chapter 5, we finally see Arnold now, who really starts having this winning mentality. I knew I was the winner, right? I was a winner. And this chapter deals with Arnold's first Mr. Universe contest, which was the amateur NABBA Mr. Universe, where he actually wins. At 20 years of age, he became the youngest Mr. Universe winner at that time. And it's really amazing in this particular chapter to read Arnold's complete obsession in perfecting now his body. He had built this massive 250-pound structure, and now he just wanted to perfect it, to polish it, to create the most perfect body anyone had ever seen. That's what he writes in this chapter. I'd close my eyes and think about how I was going to look up there. I would visualize it and try to mold it together. Gradually I narrowed it down to the poses best suited for me, the strong cat-like poses. One word was constantly in my mind: perfection. I concentrated on remaining in a pose for a certain amount of time. It was important to hold it for a minute to get rid of shaking and to let the muscles know how they should be flexed. So he's talking about posing, he's talking about perfection. He's just thinking about now really starting to become the greatest bodybuilder in the world, which was his major goal. He studies, so what is it, page 71, second paragraph. I had won the Mr. Universe title in my mind. My imagination was primed, so you can really see his visualization. He's always using his mind and visualization to achieve his goals before he actually has done it. It's incredible. My body is ready. I was working to create the greatest, most perfect body anybody had ever seen. He studies poses from magazines and artworks and from museums, posing routines from the competitors. He perfects his own posing routine, and at one point in this chapter he defines it as ballet. He mentions how he developed his own exercises even to create muscle mass or muscle separation where it was needed. For example, he invents the Arnold press to bring out his deltoids because he received criticism that he didn't have great deltoids. He also, so as he says here, I sought exercises that would burn off every gram. I developed an upward rowing exercise, which I did on the beach with heavy weights. So he starts developing his own things. He also does the dumbbell curl, from what I remember, in a different way. He also does front raises. Well, actually, he claims that he develops front raises, which I doubt. But he does develop the donkey calf raise, where he puts people on his back. The chapter then finally closes in on the Mr. Universe contest. He also gets to know Dennis Tenorino, and he knows that Dennis Tenorino was his greatest rival for the Mr. Universe amateur. And so he spends time examining photos of him, his posing routine, to uncover his weak points. And we learn that prior to the competition and during the competition, Arnold tries to psych him out, like he's so famous for in Pumping Iron with Lou Ferrigno. He actually already started doing it there, being his cocky, confident and domineering self. And this chapter is really excellent for those, I think, who are in competitive bodybuilding. You really get to learn what to do and how to win a contest. I think this chapter really is good for that, for the psyche, for knowing how to approach a competition mentally. Arnold did it all, and he has often said, you know, he leaves no stone unturned, and basically this chapter shows you that. It's really amazing. Anyway, that's the end of this particular video. I will continue with the end of autobiography section of Pumping Iron in the next video. Thank you.